2022 marks the 40th anniversary of Pinto da Costa's presidency. He is not only the president of Football Club Porto, but also a fierce defender of a region, the north of Portugal. Many say it is a close-minded view of the world, but it is nevertheless an effective one. The 84-year-old is now celebrating yet another Primeira Liga title. In the 40 years of his presidency, the club saw monstrous growth. But at what cost? He has been convicted of corrupting referees, although later acquitted, accused of stealing millions from the club, creating division and resorting to verbal and physical aggression. But the troubling signs keep popping up. If it is true that other groups of support, such as the ones from Sporting and Benfica, have an history of violence and confrontation, the Super Dragões, the organized supporters group of Porto, have been growing in influence and power. But let's take a step back. The culture of Porto is one of against everything and all. It is unclear why this is their motto. They have controlled the leadership of the league, of the referee association, and even the National Football Federation is presided by a former Porto CEO. Pinto da Costa has kept his friends close and his enemies closer. For 40 years he has reigned while the other clubs kept changing their leaderships and renewing their leaders. One cannot talk about a dictatorship because there are elections, but no one dares go against the Pope, as some call him. And those who do almost do so that Pinto da Costa does not run alone. Let's look at Porto's culture. Have you seen the effect the northern winds have on referees? Back in the day, it was normal to come out of the Porto Stadium with bruises and broken bones. Red cards? Very few, if any.
Também o campo tem ordem para jogar para Pringa. Esta entrada de Pinto é que já merece o cartão amarelo. Merece, e António Costa está atento e vai dar o cartão amarelo ao capitão do Futebol Clube do Porto. É uma entrada de carrinho, como costuma dizer-se. Repare, e de facto é dura. E Pringa tinha a bola dominada, dificilmente João Pinto conseguiria chegar à bola. Aí está. Cartão amarelo mostrado, já parece recuperado, sai Benfica para o contra-ataque e há ali uma falta sobre o Liege. Falta de Paulinho, não fica satisfeito e o Liege não fica muito bem na cabeça, terá havido no momento da queda. Na queda chocaram, não foi?
Exatamente, na queda o Paulinho Santos acertou com a chuteira na cara dele.
Estamos a ver, depois o Paulinho também cai. Pringle, ia perder muito tempo. O Paulinho volta a ficar pouco satisfeito, a dizer que não tocou, só tocou na bola, foi visível na cara dele, repare. Mas então, para tirar as dúvidas, vamos ver a entrada por trás do Paulinho. Não foi bem na bola que ele acertou, de facto foi no pé. Arthur, pelo menos interseção do remate. O Paulinho agora ali sobre Adriui, que caiu para entrar, mas não foi necessário. Estamos a rever a entrada do Paulinho, de facto já não estava lá a bola quando o Paulinho carregou o marroquino El Adriui. Então, por curiosidade, pode dizer-se que Estas duas equipas que são aqui frente a frente costumam marcar muitos golos no último quarto de hora. Cartão amarelo agora para Qatar, que, como vê pela segunda vez, vai mais cedo tomar banho. Foi uma falta sobre Arthur.
This has been going on for decades. It would be a 10-hour-long video to show everything. But here is something more recent. The question is, why don't things change? Well, the apito dourado, or the golden whistle, was a mega operation that tried to unveil the dark corners of corruption in Portuguese football. Prostitutes and money for referees, promises of furthering the referees' careers, threats, you name it. Pinto da Costa was at the center of it all. He controlled it all. He and his longtime friend Pinto de Souza, at the time head of the referees' council. They manipulated the evaluations and chose the most convenient referees to their games. It's all on YouTube, every wiretap, every conversation. Not even the fiercest fan can contradict the evidence. But the Discipline Council of the Portuguese Football Federation accepted the request from Porto to throw out the wiretaps and cleared Porto from any wrongdoing. But the internet will never let us forget. It's an incredible sense of impunity. For all the other fans, it's a huge frustration. The credibility of the Portuguese football is at stake. Just this season, on the 40th anniversary of Da Costa's presidency, Porto's league title with only one defeat was not without controversy. But let's continue to look at the culture of Porto. Take a look at two of the most celebrated captains of its history, Bruno Alves and the infamous Pepe. They follow the lineage of players such as Jorge Costa, João Pinto or Paulinho Santos. So this is what the players can expect. What about the referees? Ladies and gentlemen, the Super Dragões. There are dozens of reported incidents involving the Super Dragões and referees. One of the most scandalous was when a group of elements invaded the referees' training center and started harassing them. But it's unfortunately common to hear about referees being threatened, even with death. These two referees were nominated last month to the decisive match between Benfica and Porto. How can this be? Is it really against everything and everyone? No, it's just a smokescreen, a pathetic smokescreen. In that match, Benfica had a disallowed goal because of 2 centimeters, less than 0.8 inches. Fernando Madureira, the supreme leader of Super Dragões, has also founded a football club, Canelas 2010. This is the same club that has already been called the most violent club in the world. And this is where it gets interesting, but also scary. In 2017, the club climbed a division because in 17 matches, the opponents refused to appear. Fast forwarding, the day Porto won the title of 2021, a member of Super Dragões was stabbed to death during the celebrations. A horrible and grotesque scene of revenge. Later, it would be known that the suspect was the son of Marco Orelhas. This is the same Marco Orelhas that became world famous for this video while playing for Canelas. After this incident, Orelhas said that he didn't remember hitting the referee. The dynasty-like stories don't end up here. On that same celebration night, another Super Dragões leader's son, Fernando Madureira's 17-year-old, did this.
Que estão agora no ar aconteceram na noite em que Igor Silva foi morto. Não estão relacionadas com o homicídio diretamente. Aqui vemos um elemento dos Super Dragões com uma bandeira a subir ao contentor onde a claque do Futebol Clube Porto guarda material de apoio à equipa. Logo de seguida surge um jovem a tentar travá-lo, que é o filho de Fernando Madureira, o chefe da claque Super Dragões. Chama-se Gonçalo, tem 21 anos. Depois vemos um rapaz de fato de treino escuro que é o cunhado de Fernando Madureira, Eduardo Rocha, que na rede social Instagram está identificado como sendo o treinador do Futebol Clube do Porto. Os dois agridem violentamente um jovem a murro e pontapés. A rapariga que aparece também neste vídeo a tentar travar o confronto é Catarina Madureira, filha de Fernando Madureira, o chefe dos Super Dragões e namorada de um dos agressores. A CMTV tentou ouvir Fernando Madureira, que se limitou a dizer que estes confrontos não estão relacionados com a morte de Igor Silva. Nas redes sociais, horas depois da morte, estes confrontos chegaram a ser associados ao homicídio. A PSP não recebeu qualquer queixa. O adepto que foi brutalmente agredido também não apresentou qualquer queixa junto das autoridades.
The dynasty is guaranteed. These are the people who harass referees and journalists. One asks, how can professionals do their jobs properly looking at these events? Ever since the assassination of Igor Silva, The city of Porto has been on alert. This must be the northern pride Pinto da Costa constantly talks about. One more example of the dynastic culture in Porto. Pinto da Costa and his son Alexandre are suspects in an ongoing investigation of money laundering and fraud of up to 20 million euros. Are you still with me? Sérgio Conceição is the culture of Porto and he embodies perfectly the Porto culture. Here's why. This was only the first defeat of the Porto team in 34 matches. And the captain? Okay, let's look at Pepe again. Even in friendly matches, he's a fire starter.
Não sei, acho que é o Pepe também que vem, há dois jogadores do Futebol Clube.
É o Pepe e o Bruno Costa que vão os dois à bola e os dois acabam por sair rolar do outro, ou seja, nos jogadores do Futebol Clube.
And last but not least, the journalists. It's common to hear journalists say they have been pressured by Porto personnel. It's also common to see Porto fans verbally attack journalists on live broadcasts. Pinto da Costa has held his power with an iron fist, and journalists have always been a target when things weren't reported the way he intended. The last report happened during a Champions League game in 2021 at the Dragão, during the live coverage of the game against Athletic Madrid. Yet somehow Pinto da Costa never seems to be hit with any disciplinary procedure, even when he's on the scene, literally on the scene. But before that, a look at some examples. Back in Estádio das Antas, a Porto fan entered the pitch and began kicking and punching a reporter. No one came to his rescue. It was reported that a fan was unhappy with the comments of the journalist. In April 2021, Pinto da Costa and a businessman connected to Porto approached a cameraman after a game against Moreirense. The businessman violently attacked the cameraman. Another example of pure northern culture, as defined by Pinto da Costa. So the question is, how can referees do their job without fear? How can players play without a sense of injustice? How can fans go to stadiums without the fear of getting caught up in violence? It's been 40 years of this, far too long. It's an embarrassment to Portugal and a frustration to the fans of other clubs. It simply cannot continue.